Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Pencil YouTube channel. Today, I'm talking with Pencil's Head of Education and Enablement, Tim. Tim, how's it going?
Hi, Lee. Great to be here.
So great to have you here. And apparently, the Pencil team have been working on an exciting new feature called Workflows. What on earth is Workflows?
Well, we're really excited about workflows. Workflows are a way that we're giving creatives an opportunity to harness all of the tools in Pencil in a really visual, creative way. It's perfect for ideation. It's perfect for collaboration.
And I think the best way to explain it is probably to give you an example.
I'll come back a little bit later and show you how we got to this state. But this is a workflow that I've put together for seasonal adaptations. Workflows have many different parts to them, but the really important thing to know are that we have nodes. Those are these boxes on the screen. And we have connectors joining those nodes together into a flow. In this particular workflow, I have some input nodes. So I have a text input, which is purely a season and a market. And I have an image asset as an input. And both of these are feeding in to an agent that I built specifically for this workflow. This agent, Seasonal Image Adaptation, takes the text input, it takes the image input, and it makes an adaptation to that image. The reason why I'm using a flow here instead of just this agent is I don't just want the image here. I really want to focus on how I use this image as well within the same flow. This image can then function as an input for a new node. So you can see that we're bringing in that generated image as the input to our scoring node. Our scoring node gives you the option to implement any of the scores that you have available in your workspace, whether those are pencil scores or custom scores. And then by pairing the output of that score with an if-else node, we can start to put restrictions in place. So we can start to say that we're only going to proceed to the next step in our flow if we meet a certain threshold. We could also have an approval node. So that would allow you to put a human directly in the loop, in the flow of this workflow. Here, we've got if the score is greater than or equal to 60, we'll progress. So I've said if true, we progress. If false, I know that there's going to be human intervention in this particular flow. This then comes in to another pair of inputs. So we now have 3 inputs at play. You can see the context of our if-else score is what's going to allow this to progress once this threshold has been passed. We have our original image all the way over here, linking through as an attachment to the image generation tool. And we have a template, in this case uploaded as an asset, but we could also have a template node here. And I've prompted for my asset to be inserted into my template with the copy I need. And then finally, you can see this approval flow. So this has automatically sent an email to the approver, and once approved, that could then feed through to an export node, or it could feed through to a video node, sparing you from generating consumptive video until you've got approval of the image source. So there's a huge amount that you can do here.
What an exciting top-down way of being able to see all of this. This is so impressive, but this is great for a finished product. What does it look like creating one of these from scratch?
Well, there's a lot that you really need to consider to be able to do this well. So I'm going to come into a different workspace and let's just go completely from scratch on this. So here I am in my testing workspace. What you're going to see immediately that's new right on the homepage is this workflows option on the left-hand side. If I come here, I'll be able to see any workflows that have already been built within this workspace. We also have some default workflows that the Pencil team have built as inspiration and as templates. So if you want a really quick starting point, what you could do is select, say, the color swap workflow. This gives you a non-editable model to work from, so you would then duplicate this workflow and you can then adapt this. You can use this as your own framework to build your own color swap or your own other adaptation workflow. If we're going from scratch, you'll have to do a little bit more thinking, but this is going to be the way that we're going to get really, really intuitive and very customized workflows. When I come to new workflow, you'll see that we start with a blank canvas. One thing that I am going to note before starting is that I am an absolute nightmare for shutting my tabs without thinking about it. This workflow won't start to autosave until I've published it. So before anything else, I'm going to come in and name and publish my workflow. So the workflow I'm going to build is a LinkedIn event workflow. And let's save that and press publish. Now I'm safe to navigate away at any point. Then we've got different ways that we can navigate. You'll see we have our basic controls at the bottom of the screen. So we can choose to select, you can choose to move, although it's worth noting that on a laptop trackpad, you can navigate around with a 2-fingered swipe. We have the ability to add content either with this add button at the bottom of the screen or a double click anywhere. And of course, we can zoom in and out. Again, either with trackpad or the on-screen controls. I'm going to start by thinking about what I'm seeking to achieve in this workflow. So I have 2 main things I want to get out of this flow. I run a regular live stream on LinkedIn called The Pencil Perspective, and I want to produce cover imagery and event descriptions. And I want to have a really easy user flow so that my team are able to create that content from minimal starting information. That means I'm going to have 2 branches of this flow. We're going to have text generation for an event description. We're going to have image generation as well. And I want to ensure that the way that I use the agents in this flow is going to get me verifiably good results. So we'll pop some scoring into this as well. In order to get this flow going, I know that I'm going to need to include my custom agents for this flow. So I've built these outside of this session. We've got plenty of resources, including a video like this about agent building. So if you are curious about how I built these agents, you can find that out. I'm going to add, to start with, from my agents. Handily, although there are huge numbers of agents in each workspace, you can find the ones you've built yourself really easily. And I'm going to bring in the Pencil Perspective image generation. And we're going to add that agent. I'm also going to bring in my LinkedIn event agent. And let's add that right in here. And that's going to produce those event descriptions for me. Both of these agents are going to be powered by the same context. So I know that I need a text input that's going to feed in to both of these. But despite having the same context, I want to prompt them slightly differently. So I'm actually going to have 3 text inputs here. I'm going to share one of those text inputs between both of these agents, and that's going to go into my context connector. And you'll see as soon as I connect to context, my line turns pink, so I can really easily see what's connected to where. In terms of addition of these different inputs, you must have a prompt into an agent, even if it's an agent that you've built with really simple instructions like run. You'd still need a text input saying run, otherwise the agent is unable to start. You can only have one prompt. Context is text-based, and you can add multiple context items. You'll see where I've added context. That's become context 1, and context 2 it's opened up to add into. You can also bring in multiple different attachments, and I'll come back to attachments once we've got the outputs from our image generation. Now, what I tend to do when I'm building a workflow is get the first part of my workflow built and then try it. I'd rather identify any issues in generation when I've got fewer nodes than build out a whole workflow speculatively and just hope that it works. So here, I'm going to bring in the same context for both of these nodes. And the context here is that the next Pencil Perspective live stream that I'm going to be running is based on a particular research report. So I'm bringing in the URL of that research report. And both of these agents are built with the ability to read URLs. So in my prompt for my image generation, live stream is about the report from the URL referenced in my context, hosted by Will Hanschel and Tim Bowers. So we'll get that one going, and we can run this node over here. If I press run to here, just come back down here and see, run from here, that will run everything after that point in the flow. That's obviously not relevant when I've only partially built it. For my event agent, I need a little bit more context. I've got a text input designed specifically for my event agent. So event is about the report from the context URL. Create a name for the event yourself. Hosts are Will Hanschel and Tim Bowers, CEO and Head of Education respectively at Pencil. Event is targeted at strategic thinkers and leaders in the marketing and tech spaces. Date is 27th of Feb 2026. So I've just done a little bit of readjustment here. You'll see that I've pulled over my text agent just to offset it slightly. That's because the thought process and outputs from ImageGen will quite often drag downwards as the fields in here expand, and we don't want to be reducing our visibility of the different agents. I've also got my assets ready. So here I just double clicked and as an input node brought in asset nodes and then uploaded the pictures of me and Will that are required for my Pencil Perspective ImageGen custom agent. And I'm just going to bring attachment 1 in here. Immediately we've got an opening for attachment 2, and both of those attachments are now feeding in. I can run these one at a time. I can also choose to run from here, in which case any connected nodes afterwards will also run without affecting previous nodes, or I can run a whole workflow. I'm just going to do one at a time here. What I'll tend to do is I'll use that run whole workflow option once I've already built a full workflow, and then I'm using it for different adaptations of the flow. Right, we've got an output now from our text agent. So I'm going to start reviewing my output there while my images are still loading. But we've got a really good event description. This closely matches exactly what I had in the structure of the agent itself. So I'll be happy to proceed with that to the next stage of the flow. There we go. So we've now got some images ready here, which we'll be able to preview directly within the node. Let's take a quick look. This agent was built with 3 specified outputs. That's why I've got 3 outputs here. And you'll see that we've got 1, 2, 3 viewable here. We're talking future of AI, so it's taken the context from that article really well. So where we are in our flow now, what I want to do is start to build in some protections in the form of scores. So to add my scores, I'm going to double click. That's going to bring up my node selection, and scores are a data score. So let's come in to my score. Let's zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to select score. And here I've got a custom score that I built just for this purpose. The benefit here is this just means that everything that I'm doing in this flow is completely fully tailored and controlled by me. So when we leave this to be fully automated, it's not going rogue. The way that I'm going to connect this is each of my image outputs from the previous node is a work item here. So the first image is work 1, second image is work 2, etc. I'm going to connect work 1 to this score. The score node can only score from 1 input at a time. So let's then also duplicate this. It's better to select all of the different options that you need in the node and then duplicate it just so you don't have to reselect everything. And let's duplicate that again. And let's connect that last work item in. The score might have an explanation text that causes this node to expand downwards. So I'm just going to offset my middle one there, just so I don't end up with a messy workflow. The score on its own will be useful to me, but if I really want to be automating processes here, I'm going to bring in some if-else nodes as well. So that's going to tell the flow what to do with the score. So data again, if-else, and then I'm going to select is greater than or equal to 70. We can add multiple conditions here, and every if-else node is going to give you the choice of how you want the flow to progress for a true outcome or for a false outcome. Again, let's duplicate. And again, the benefit of duplicating is I've made my selections. I don't need to come back in and manually reselect if I know that my parameters are going to be the same. Let's get that into a reasonably neat flow. Finally, I want to know what's going to happen. There's no point having an if-else node in here unless we have some variables. I'm not actually going to do a false pathway here just for the sake of time as a quick demo, but we can have pathways coming off both for true and for false with different actions assigned. I'm just going to send anything that gets approved through to a human approval. To do that, we look at an output. Output is approval, and I'm just going to drag those true connectors into the separate work items here. And let's also come back to my text for the LinkedIn event, and we'll send that for approval as well. If I'm sending for approval, I need an approver. So let's just put in my email address as the test on here. And then let's see how this does. I'm not going to press run workflow up here because that will rerun everything from the start of this flow. And I'm happy with the outputs that I've got at the start. That's more something I'd do if I duplicated the whole flow and we're trying the whole flow out with different inputs as an automated process. Instead, I'm going to come in, I'm going to run from here. This will set that node into action, but also all of its dependent nodes. And those have gone through super quickly. We've got scores of 90 on each of those images with a good explanation. Because that's a score of 90 on all of them, we flowed through perfectly through that score gate, and we're straight into approval. This will now have sent an email. So it's saying awaiting approval because it's sent an email to all of the approval email recipients. And then I'm just going to off screen come into my emails and my email just says you've got new work to review. Let me quickly show that on here as well. And when I press review now, it opens up a review portal. There we go. And you can see the document with the text. We've got the ability to approve or not approve. Let's approve that. And then we've got each of our images received for approvers. I'm going to approve this one and this one. And I'm going to leave a comment on this one saying, this doesn't look like Tim. And I'm going to not approve that one. When we come back and look at that within my workflow, you can see we've got 1, 2, 3 approved work items. And then we've got this one not approved work item as well. Finally, we can bring this into export. So I'm going to do another output node here. And we're just going to say that I'm going to bring in manually my approved ones here. This is just for the sake of speed. In a real flow, I would be putting an if else node in between here as well, and just verify, has each item received its human approval or not? And then potentially even then routing that back into more actions and more regenerations in the flow. As soon as we press export here, or if we're running the flow start to end, it will happen automatically. This will process a download of all of the successful work items. So that's it. That's an end-to-end flow. If I zoom back out, you can see the whole structure of that start to end. And my download has just gone through there as well.
Tim, this is so cool. What a fantastic multimodal experience and what a way to revolutionize your workflow. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you so much for watching. Have fun with workflows and let us know how you get on. Reach out to the Pencil team if you have any questions, and have a great day.